Don't put growth on pause. If you had some ambitious goals going into 2020, a new decade, everyone was so excited, so jazzed, had no idea what was about to come our way. If you had those big goals that you were working towards, don't put them on the back burner. Maybe some of those goals involved hiring or amping up your marketing and bringing in more clients. You can still do all those things, even when you are working from home, working remotely. There's a lot of tools out there. I'm really proud to say that LawClerk is one of them, but I just really want to challenge your listeners. Don't put those plans on pause just because there's so much uncertainty in the world right now.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by ConsultWebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms that shrinks when you bake it. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in legal marketing and law firm development. I am Jake Sanders. He is Paul Julius. Paul, when was the last time you put plastic in the oven?
Oh, the last time I put plastic in the oven, I baked a spatula on accident, and that's a story for another time. I can't even remember. How about you? When was the last time you put some plastic in the oven and fired that thing up?
This morning. We're
kidding. No, you didn't.
We're playing with Shrinky Dinks at my house. Somebody delivered some of those cellophane transparents, and you draw on them with permanent marker. Put them in the oven for 30 seconds later, they're out. It's fun, but that's purposeful. How did you leave a spatula in there?
It's kind of embarrassing, but I was gonna cook a frozen pizza, and so I turned on the oven, but then I was like, well, I'll preheat the oven and then hop in the shower, and I didn't realize that I had left the already cooked pizza from last night and the spatula I used to take it off the tray there in the oven. So I turned on the oven with that in there, unknowing, and hopped in the shower. And while I was in the shower, I heard this far away beeping, and I was like, "Boy, there's a truck backing up or something." I don't know. That's really weird. Got out of the shower, and I was like, "It's still going, man. Someone's really just left it in reverse." And I opened the bathroom door, and there was about a foot of cloud along my ceiling.
Wow.
And it was my smoke detector going off.
Wow.
So just in a towel, I ran into the kitchen and pulled the thing out of there. And it wasn't on fire, but it was smoldering pretty good. And then even to make it even worse, I went to go take the battery out of the smoke detector, because obviously I knew, what the source of smoke was. I knew it going off. So I grabbed a shower, and it was in the middle of the dining room, which was in the middle of the house, which had windows all around. And I went up there to do it, and I hit my head on the corner of the door frame there, which knocked the towel off. So I was standing in the middle of my house, naked, holding a smoke detector that was going off in front of the picture windows and stuff.
Oh, threat detected.
Yeah,
Woo!
I owned that one, man.
Oh,
so
my
that was
God.
the last time. So,
what a
folks,
great story. Yeah.
I don't know what kind of warning there is to give you.
And I don't know what kind of.
Okay.
But think of the legal disclaimer they would have to put on a a spatula. They're like, apparently, don't leave this in the oven. And then on the towel, they're like, be careful not to hit your head while wearing towel.
I owned it.
Own it as you shall. Now own this intro and tell us where we're headed.
Right on, man. On the show today, we're talking about outsourcing and freelancing for lawyers. First, with an article from my favorite, Forbes.com. And then we talk to LawClerk co-founder Kristin Tyler about the ins and outs of outsourcing legal work and taking on gigs. And then we try and fail, as usual, to catch our guest off guard with 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? The article today on the Hot Take Buffet is from the kitchen of Forbes, which Paul says he just loves. We were kind of arguing before we were recording. says, I hate this site. And I was like,
Yeah,
maybe he means something else. I think it's a good title. It speaks to the time we find ourselves, a sort of disrupted time. The title of it is the gig economy set to disrupt the legal profession? It's written by the rascal himself, Addy Gaskell, the rascal, who describes himself on the bottom as a free-range human who believes that the future already exists if we know where to look. So,
all right, okay, bud.
It's Addy. He's at it again. Let me drop the intro. We can hit on his bullet points, and then we can provide hot takes and move on. So he starts like this: if you think of the gig economy, the chances are you think of the likes of Uber and Lyft, Deliveroo, and Mechanical Turk, platforms offering relatively low-skilled work with minimal job security and many of the bad things that have come to characterize the gig economy. He goes on to describe how the gig economy is functioning in law, and there was an approach like this. There is an approach like this. Like, I forget, what is it, Legal Monkeys or something like that? Or Contract Monkey? There's something that they just outsource a bunch of stuff to a whole bunch of different foreign countries and get a bunch of legal work going on. But there's this idea here in this intro that I think is a little upsetting, and something that Kristin addresses with her company, LawClerk, is people sometimes have a hesitance to think of the gig economy as real job because you couldn't make it at a real place. Here you are working your gig. You must have low skill, or you must be cantankerous, or you must put plastic in the oven, you know? But you're employed. So I think it's an interesting article. It talks on some things, but I think he frames it in a way that sort of disables the ability for lawyers and law firm owners to see it as a recognizable goal that they could achieve in their lives, in their practices. Maybe people think, I wouldn't be able to manage my projects enough to get help, or I wouldn't be able to afford it, or they wouldn't be as skilled as I am. So there's a lot of these hesitations that Kristin addresses later, and sort of kind of takes this article down a notch and talks about, which I think Addy is interesting. This guy's take. He's saying that the future's here if you know where to look. I think that's what Kristin's talking about. This gig economy that's disrupting the law firm, and COVID now sort of flattening the curve of innovation. Now everybody has to innovate, like Eitan was saying in a previous episode. Yeah, I think this future is here. It's accessible, but if we think of it as this disruption, maybe we won't use it or think of it as a realizable goal for ourselves. That's my hot take. What are you baking in your oven besides plastic?
Oh man, this article actually reminded me of the taste that was in my mouth when I was standing there, naked in my dining room. It's hard for me to put my finger on, but there's just seems to be a little bit of side eye with this article. And talking later to Chris, and I think the one that really got me out of here is he's talking about this study, a study that, what was it? The study aims to explore some of the motivations for joining what appears to be an environment that worsens their working conditions. It says the study revealed nearly all lawyers on the platforms were individual rather than corporate lawyers, with participants tending to fall into one of two groups: entry-level lawyers who lack the experience and contacts to find work in more traditional means, and lawyers operating in less developed parts of the country. There was not sufficient demand for legal services. That is maybe a portion of it, but I don't think you're going to find that on LawClerk. And talking to Kristin, I mean, she talks about outsourcing to, well, I'm not going to ruin the story, but this is a very narrow view. And I don't know if it's, he had an opinion and decided to go and find some research that backed it up or just didn't do enough. But I think this is far from the actual reality, and options available now for lawyers who either want to outsource some work to take on bigger cases, maybe getting into some practice areas that are similar but not 100% familiar, or they don't do it regularly, or on the other side of it, just I don't want to work for a big corporate law firm anymore, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to be, tied down to all the stresses and, responsibilities of, running a law firm myself and having staff
and overhead too. I mean, think of what this COVID thing is doing to law firm owners' conception of overhead. Whoa. If you're telling me that the judiciary is now changing the way depositions and e-signing, and they're changing it because it has to change, and now law firms and lawyers are adopting the tech because they have to change, I think we a lot of these old arguments maybe just won't hold up in the future because everybody's going to be gigging. Sadly, I mean, I'm sad about that. I don't know.
Well, I think too, there's this thing here that we're seeing now that's been exposed with the whole, shelter in place orders and people working remote. I mean, a lot of the clients at ConsultWebs are, I mean, we've actually heard some really positive stories of people who've, transitioned to 100% remote work. They're still getting cases done, just waiting for the courts to open back up, and they're good to go. And so I think a lot of this stuff of like, oh, well, you're not going to get the same, level of service. You're not going to get the same quality of work. It just falls flat now because it's proven to just not be true.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not. And as Kristin goes into it later, I mean, this is a really viable option for someone who, maybe on the freelancing side of it, want to take an approach that it may seem weird for legal to just be like, hey, whatever, I'll pick up work here, there, or wherever. Whereas, Jake, where you and I are more used to working with, creatives, it's, people go their entire careers happily and by choice as freelancers.
Mm-hmm. Well, and really what it is knowing where you need help, knowing how you need help, how you can use the tools necessary, because the tools are there. The answers are there. That's maybe one of the other themes of this podcast is it's here. You have the answer. You can cobble it together. You can create that Frankenfirm. The future is here if you just choose to see it. But it's happening here with LawClerk or Lawyer Exchange or, Dina Eisenberg or, anybody else who's been on this show that's told you how you could get help. Andrea Canavina. The tools, the talent, the tech, it's all here. It's just waiting for you. Like Kristin is waiting for us on the other side of this.
Yes.
So we should get to it because she has brilliance and a bounty of knowledge, and we're about to get to it.
Let's go.
Stay tuned for more goodness from Lawsome after this message.
Any lawyer looking to grow their business online can generate more leads from their website by hiring ConsultWebs. After working with lawyers exclusively since 1999, we've tested thousands of web designs and marketing strategies, so we know what flips and what flops. For more information, visit www.consultwebs.com today.
And now, a Lawsome interview.
LawClerk co-founder Kristin Tyler has been practicing law for more than 10 years. As a partner of a mid-sized law firm in Las Vegas, she understands the challenges that her fellow attorneys face in today's rapidly evolving legal industry and is committed to demonstrating that being a lawyer doesn't have to mean working insane hours and missing out on time doing the things you enjoy with the people you love. As one of the people that loves her, we're honored to share some time with Kristin on the show today. Kristin, welcome to Lawsome.
Yay! I'm kind of geeking out because I'm a huge fan of this podcast. Like, I legitimately listen to it on the regular. So I am so excited to be here.
Stop. That's so good to hear. Well, we're massive fans of you and your shark game.
Yes.
That is just prolific. It's kismet. This is what
Yes.
it is.
We got some good stuff coming up, so you just stay tuned.
Oh, I can't wait.
Ooh.
More swag. So let's focus on LawClerk and give us a quick rundown. What is it? How are lawyers signing up, and how's it been during this tumultuous time?
Well, so those of you who have not heard of LawClerk, what we do is we help busy attorneys, whether they're solo, small firms, any size of firm. We help match those folks up with our nationwide network of freelance lawyers. We call the freelance lawyers law clerks that the busy attorneys can hire for project work. So it's all done project by project. It's really the gig economy meets legal, and it's changing the way a lot of lawyers are practicing law on both sides. And really, we're a lot more than just matching you up to. We provide some really powerful tools to help working remotely, make it work a lot easier, help you streamline the process of finding and vetting the best freelancer for you, and then collaborating together. So that's what we do.
So have you noticed an uptick recently in project work?
The numbers are looking really good. We had our best week ever last week. And so I think that the situation that we're in right now, the country, the world, is, for better or for worse, forcing a lot of lawyers to rethink their staffing, their hiring, the ways they're getting work done. And it's pushing a lot of them to go look for resources like us and give us a try. So we're really excited that we can help lawyers on both sides right now. We've also had, a lot more freelancers signing up as you're seeing furloughs and layoffs. Some really talented lawyers have capability to take on some extra work in a freelance capacity. And so this just opens tremendous doors for people that need help, that people that want to take on some more work. And we're really happy we can help serve the legal community right now in this way.
Well, and it seems before there was a pandemic that forced everybody's hand. Now what the millennials were pining for, which is remote work and, sort of this, the ability to, telecommute and, pick up projects or maybe get help or, develop their, abilities on their own. Now that's all you have. Temporarily, maybe for the new normal or whatever this next normal is. But before this, it seemed that a lot of people were afraid to ask for help. Can you talk to the stigma of outsourcing legal services? And are people ashamed to get help still?
Well, I don't think that people are, and I don't know if it's so much that they're ashamed to get help. It's that when they find something that's a good thing, they don't want other people to know. They want to keep that competitive advantage to themselves.
Oh, so this is sort of like I have a secret sauce. This is the paprika.
It's the secret weapon that they don't want the other people in their community, especially, to know about, because then they're going to go use it too. And legal services are going to get amped up across the board.
But wait, is there a stigma to getting help? A lot of people think, you know what, I can handle it. Maybe I don't deserve help. Maybe speak to these people who are seeing maybe LawClerk sounds great, but meh.
Right. Well, really, I think the stigma when it comes to outsourcing is more on the freelancer side. And there's this really incorrect stereotype that freelancers are people that can't get quote unquote real jobs. And you guys can see my air quotes there, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. We heard them.
Of course.
So there's this stereotype that they can't get real jobs at real law firms. And so why would you want to hire the freelancers? And the reality of that could not be farther from the truth. That's probably the thing that's been the most exciting and surprising to us as we built this company was the stories that emerge of our incredible freelancers. We have a lot of people that have worked for big law, huge firms in New York City or wherever for years and decided that they did not want to live their life that way. They wanted to get out of the rat race. Mm-hmm. They wanted to, create very intentional practices where they could live life and not just practice law all the time. We've got this great freelancer who he only does freelance work for other lawyers, lives in Hawaii. He's really living the dream. And, he doesn't have to deal with clients. He doesn't have to go to court and argue. He gets to do the best part of the legal work, which is the analysis, the writing, and that's his passion. So it works out great for him. I talked to another freelancer who, again, was in big law, knew he wasn't on partner track, got out of it, moved to Costa Rica, and now does brief writing. Again, living the dream. But, beyond that, the freelancers a lot of them are solo attorneys that when the practice of law inevitably ebbs and flows, if things slow down, they're going to go on and pick up some freelance work because they still got to buy groceries and pay for gas and all those things. We've got military spouses who, the stats on military spouses are really interesting. They get moved around every 2 to 3 years. The majority of military bases are in really rural areas where there's not a lot of legal jobs to be found. And so freelancing for them has become a lifeline. Or even if they're, stationed overseas, there again, it's going to be really hard to find a U.S. law-based job for 2 years while you're stationed there. So the freelancers are incredibly impressive, and folks can check that out for themselves. Come on the site lawclerk.legal and look at who we have to offer. I think you're going to be really impressed.
So to kind of expand on that, are you seeing it now that, is it possible to just be like a lawyer on demand? Jake and I working, more with the marketing, the web design and stuff. We're entrenched in project-based work. We work with tons of people who are amazing, and it is their kind of preferred method of business. Their entire business structure is freelance contract, maybe longer term contracts sometimes. But do you think it's possible to do that? And I guess it's probably dependent on what type of law, but could you see something like, do you see people who are either working through LawClerk or just in general who really just do that?
We are. And again, I think that might be another secret that these successful freelancers don't want people to know it's possible because they don't want people to come infringe on their market. But I do know lawyers all over the country. And again, we have a couple that live out of the States right now that do rely solely on their freelance work through LawClerk. A number of other freelancers I've met have a couple of regular clients that they work with directly, fine, that they trust will pay them, because that's a big risk thing with doing freelance legal work. Because I've heard a ton of horror stories of freelance lawyers doing a bunch of work and getting stiffed by the lawyer that hired them, which is just terrible. And our site helps prevent that. But yeah, I think a lot of the career freelancers they have 2 or 3 direct clients they write for, and then they do project work through sites like ours as well. In addition, and the combination allows them to completely freelance for their legal career, which is so cool.
That is cool. Can you just go a little bit more into how that works and how LawClerk kind of helps make sure that the right people are matched up with the right project and everybody gets paid? Just kind of the mechanics on that, because that's huge. Believe me, even back when I was doing freelance stuff, I've been stiffed a couple times. It's a bad feeling,
Yes, it's terrible. So the way it works is, first off, you asked about how do we match people up. So when an attorney posts a project, say you have a motion for summary judgment that you want someone to write because you don't want to write it, or you don't have time to write it because you're suddenly, stuck at home working from home and homeschooling your kids too, and et cetera, et cetera. But so you go on, you log into your account, post this motion for summary judgment. One of the steps in there is you're going to tag the areas of law that apply. So if it's a business contract dispute, you're going to tag business, you're going to tag contract, you're going to tag as many keywords as you can. And then what that allows us to do is, on the flip side, on the freelancer side, we're going to match you up with the freelancers who have said, hey, I have experience in litigation and business and contracts. And we're going to send them notice saying, hey, this lawyer needs help writing a motion for summary judgment. If you're free this week, if you agree to the flat fee price they set for the work, then apply. So all of the work is done on a flat fee price, which is really cool because it gives the hiring attorney total control over what they're going to spend for that piece of work. So that's another downfall to the traditional contract lawyer way of doing freelance work of X many dollars per hour. And the hiring attorney has no idea how many hours that work's going to be and what kind of a bill they're going to get. So, matching people up by practice area is key. And then we also allow the hiring attorney to search their applicants based on the location where they live, based on number of projects completed, based on their rating. So there's different features like that allow you to go through the applicants and find the best person for you. So up until this point, you've posted the project, you're reviewing your applicants, you've set the flat fee price, but you've not been charged anything. The moment you find your winning candidate and you say, hey, Jane Smith, Jane looks amazing, I want her to write this motion for me. The moment you hit assign her to the project, we're going to charge your credit card for that flat fee price. But we hold the money in an escrow account through a third-party company called Braintree. They're a PayPal subsidiary. We're going to hold that money in escrow until you come back and say, number one, the work's done. Number two, that you're happy with it. As long as you're happy with it, then we're going to release the freelancer's portion of the fee to them. Great. We handle all the payment processing fees, tax reporting. If there's a problem with the work, we offer a satisfaction guarantee on every single project that goes through the site. And so that really gives a lot of lawyers peace of mind to give it a try, because they know if they do have, work that's not exactly up to their standards, we're going to make it right for them. Thankfully, that happens in less than 1% of all of the thousands and thousands and thousands of projects that go through the site. Less than 1%.
Nice.
So, but when you're dealing with thousands of lawyers all over the country, there's inevitably going to be a problem here or there. Somebody's going to have a difference of opinion of what the work should have been, but it's less than 1%, folks. So there's a pretty good chance you're going to be happy with the work you get, and we really like that.
Yeah, and getting to some of these things too, particularly talking about freelance, I know different dev guys and programmers, like right now it's like, oh man, Java's hot, or we need somebody who can code Ruby, and those guys can almost kind of set their own prices. Are you seeing anything like that right now? Like, is there a huge demand on LawClerk for IP lawyers or something like that?
Really, and that's, I wish there was one specific area, but we see work in a very broad array of all areas of law, which, from a marketing business development standpoint, it makes it challenging because we got to talk to lawyers in all different practice areas. So I wish there was one, but really the answer is we see work in every area of law you can imagine.
You have experience in bankruptcy and then outsourcing. You actually outsourced at your firm in a case, and it helped you win.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the experience and how you think LawClerk can help firms who find themselves in that situation?
For sure. So switching hats, yes, I'm one of the co-founders of LawClerk, but I'm also a practicing attorney. And we have a firm of 16 lawyers in Las Vegas. The majority of those lawyers practice in bankruptcy. I do trust and estates. So I'm not a bankruptcy lawyer, but I hear enough talk about bankruptcy by the water cooler. I could probably pretend to be one if I had to. But, early on when we were starting LawClerk, our firm was amazing because it was our own test kitchen where we could try out the site and work out the kinks. And we did use the service on a particularly large bankruptcy litigation case we were taking on a huge firm in New York City. It's a firm, if I said the name, everybody listening would know who it is. And our little 16 lawyer firm in Las Vegas was up against them. They document dumped, I think it was over 2.5 million pages of documents on us that had to be reviewed quickly, could not go through AI software for a variety of reasons. I think we did actually run it through our software that we have, but we wanted human eyes to look at it as well because we couldn't risk missing even the smallest thing. So we batched those documents into like 5,000 or 10,000 page batches, put them out to freelance lawyers with a chart specifying what specific things we were looking for in the documents. And then they cataloged those, sent it back, and we could quickly go through their logs to find the documents that we needed. If we would have, we could have gone out into our local community and hired 3 or 4 lawyers to come in, work full time for 2 months to do this, and then let them go. But using the time and talent of these freelance lawyers, we were able to get the documents reviewed much quicker, actually, find what we needed, compete with this big firm. And, it gave us a huge competitive advantage without having to increase our overhead. Plus, it brought a nice sizable amount of additional revenue into the firm because you can bill the freelancer's time at a reasonable market rate. So our own test kitchen has been amazing to try this out, but we're hearing similar stories from a lot of our users and all over the country where they are, you're talking about big personal injury class action type firms that are using us in the same way. Other litigation firms, we're hearing a lot of attorneys that used to be in big law have kind of seen the writing on the wall about the overhead of those firms. They've left, started their own boutique shops. And rather than, having to bankroll hiring 5 or 6 associates to come with them, they're instead using the freelance lawyers through LawClerk for a lot of that same work at, a much better price point. So it's not just our own test kitchen. We're seeing a lot of lawyers having success leveraging freelancers to take on big law and win.
And it seems like having this challenge now where a lot of law firms are working remotely and they're physically distant. It seems like LawClerk is a place where you could free up some of the work that you're doing and also pick up and explore different areas of the law or different expertise, or skill sets that you want to sharpen. I mean, is this LawClerk is sort of like a kitchen. I mean, would you encourage someone to just kind of go in here if they were curious, or do you want to just mess with LawClerk when you know you need something done? I mean, is this a chance? Is LawClerk a chance for people to parlay themselves into new business models and into new careers? It just seems sort of like more of a trampoline than just a tool. Can
Absolutely.
you maybe riff on that?
We want people to come in and absolutely play with LawClerk. So there's a couple caveats to that. The one thing you do have to be mindful of is staying in your own lane. Lawyers have an ethical duty of competency. So by that, I mean, if you are a longtime criminal defense attorney, and all of a sudden you have a client that comes to you with an IP litigation matter, like that's pretty far outside your lane. You probably are going to be best just to refer that on. But let's say that same criminal defense attorney wants to take on some family law work, because obviously right now maybe there's not as much criminal defense work. They want to take on some family law work or immigration, and they genuinely want to learn that area of law along the way. LawClerk can be a great tool, because what we can do is match you up with freelancers that have experience in family law, immigration, whatever it may be. And honestly, they can almost mentor you along the way. So you're working with them, collaborating with them on the documents you need. You're going to rely on your own underlying litigator skills to go to court and do the arguing and all of that stuff. But as long as you are willing to invest your own time to learn that area of law, the freelance lawyers can really be a great boost to you as they kind of almost mentor you along the way. In fact, a lot of our freelancers, I didn't mention them earlier, but they are either semi-retired or retired attorneys with 20, 30 plus years of experience. And for you to be able to tap into their knowledge bank and learn from them as a partner working your cases is pretty cool. So definitely, if folks have different practice areas they're thinking about venturing into, but they know they need some help or their associates don't have experience in those areas, think about our folks. They can be a big resource to you as you do try to add different practice areas to your firm.
All right. So digging now that I'm not muted anymore. Yeah, I'm a professional. It's all right. So there's a plethora of great ideas here, but let's get it down to one thing. So what's one piece of advice you can give our listeners that they could start doing like today, right now, that would help improve their law firms?
I am going to say, I'm just going to encourage listeners, don't put growth on pause. If you had some ambitious goals going into 2020, a new decade, everyone was so excited, so jazzed, had no idea what was about to come our way. If you had those big goals that you were working towards, don't put them on the back burner. Maybe some of those goals involved hiring or amping up your marketing and bringing in more clients. You can still do all those things, even when you are working from home, working remotely. There's a lot of tools out there. I'm really proud to say that LawClerk is one of them, but I just really want to challenge your listeners. Don't put those plans on pause just because there's so much uncertainty in the world right now.
So if people want to learn more about LawClerk, they want to find you, Kristin, how can they find you online?
Absolutely. So the best way to find out about LawClerk is to visit us at lawclerk.legal. Ton of resources on there. We have links on there to some of our videos on our YouTube. Our YouTube page is fantastic. Again, if you go to any of the big social media platforms and search LawClerk, you're going to find us. The only exception to that would be on Instagram. The way you're going to find us is we are at Shark on the Run. So that we really have fun with our Instagram page. A lot of awesome Sharky pictures. I know you guys love those. So if you're on Instagram and you want just a fun page to follow, go look up Shark on the Run. Me personally, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. Kristin Tyler, LawClerk, you can find me and would love to connect.
5 questions we ask everyone.
What was the last book you read?
Okay, so if you want to get literal with the last book I read, it was The Day the Crayons Quit to my 5-year-old last night. But before that, I'm reading Charlotte's Web with my 8-year-old. And for my own fun, I mean, I'm a total mom book kind of reader. So I read this really fun book called Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I think it was in a Reese Witherspoon book club. Yeah, I'm a fluffy reader, people. But if you're looking for something light, Such a Fun Age was really good.
Great.
It's all good. All right. Number 2, what is your favorite place?
So my favorite place, and I'm so thankful, is my own home. I love being home. It is an oasis, and I love it. So that's working out for me right now.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. Number 3, what sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
Sure. I'm a bit of a news junkie, and that's just been like, gas on a fire right now. So I read a lot of different news posts, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, or local news. I dig into all of it. Blogs, newsletters. I love Bob Ambrosi's stuff. I follow that. I don't miss one of those. Podcasts. Podcasts are great. Even, I used to listen to them when I was commuting, but now it's like when I'm walking the dog or doing housework. Like I said, Lawsome. I really do enjoy what you guys do. The Jess Birkin Halloween episode was so epic.
Oh, thank you.
With the editing. I also really like How I Built This, Masters of Scale, Reid Hoffman. I have to give a shout out to my dear friend and mentor, Heather Hubbard, who does the Hustle and Flow podcast. That is great. If there's any, especially female lawyers out there that haven't listened to Hustle and Flow, Heather Hubbard, go check that out.
Nice. All right. Toughest question of the bunch. Number 4. If you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
Okay. So I'm not a big sauces person because it just adds calories. But if it was one, and you're going to want to go on Amazon and get this, folks. So there is this white truffle hot sauce that is like to die for, especially on eggs. The brand is Truff, Truff. White truffle hot sauce. It was on Oprah's favorite things for last Christmas, and I gave it to everyone, and it is like we go through it by the bottle pretty fast.
Last one. After a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
Oh, all right. So that's got to involve some music. Usually, preferably either 80s music or maybe some like country rock. Preferably with a really good glass of wine. If you want to have another podcast talking about wine, we could do that. And just outside with people I love. So music, wine, fresh air, that's the magic combo.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsomepodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week. Stay lawsome.